Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Anywhere Uni Live podcast. Today we are lucky to be in the campus, in the St. Louis University campus in Madrid. So if you're with us live, feel free to ask questions in the comment section. We're always happy to take all the questions as we go through the podcast. And if you're watching us through YouTube or listening to us through Deezer or Spotify, feel free to follow us so you don't miss any of the episode of the podcast. So tonight I'm delighted to be with Heidi, with the Director of International Admission at St. Louis University in Madrid. And we're going to have an hour together to chat and discover more about American universities in Europe and specifically about St. Luis University in Madrid. Hi, Heidi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for coming to campus.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, it's lovely to be in Madrid and to we had a nice tour. We were able to see the entire campus. Students are kind of out already at this time of year, but we can see how lovely the whole campus is, and we encourage you to actually come and visit. That's something that students can do and families
can book a tour every day. We actually had a tour with one of our student tour guides, and yeah, we like to connect you with current students. So yeah, you can book tours any day of the week.
Yeah. So if you're ever in Madrid, really get in touch, and I'm sure they'll have a nice student to give you a tour of the campus. All right. So we'll dive right into it. So before we start, we are in Madrid. We're in Europe. But you are an American university and you're giving the degrees, you grant bachelor degrees because we're focusing on undergraduate degrees here. They're American bachelor degrees.
Yeah. So we kind of like to say we're the best of both worlds. We're located in Spain. We're a branch campus of St. Louis University in St. Louis, Missouri. If you don't know where that is, it's just south of Chicago. And our campus in the U.S. is a large teaching and research institution. It's an R1 university, ranked 105 of national universities. So it's a medium-sized university. The nice thing is we're a branch campus. We're here in Spain. We're very international, much smaller, much more personal. But like I said, we're American, but we're located in Spain. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And we do grant American degrees. We teach in English. So it's a little bit like, an American campus here in the center of Madrid. But you get to hear Spanish, you get to hear Chinese and French and Arabic and lots of other languages. So yeah, it's a nice little hub outside of the United States.
Yes, we see all these big American universities that have sometimes a specific spot in Europe, but often it's just for exchange students or maybe for like a semester abroad or these kind of things. So here you could come and study for the full 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. So we were founded in 1967. People often say, why Madrid? We are a Catholic Jesuit university. So we often say we welcome students of all faiths and non-faiths. So we have students from all over the world. We're very much not a melting pot, because we don't want everybody to become one version of themselves. We want everybody to kind of maintain who they are. So we kind of say a mosaic. So you have people from all over the world. We have students who have 2 to 3 different nationalities. And so students can come here, do their full 4 years. Out of our student population, we have about 1,400 students, and half of those students will do their full degree here in Madrid. So there are 22 different programs, but we've been here since 1967. We were the first branch campus of an American university here in Europe. So we've been around for quite a long time. And yeah, students are like the student we had the tour with. They're just looking for something a little bit different. Maybe, even if they're coming from the US or from Spain or from Morocco or from Asia or Africa, they're kind of looking for a unique experience. And coming here is definitely for a specific type of student who wants a small, close-knit campus, but also teaching in English and then living in Spain. So it's a very unique education, but yeah.
Because we see more and more, national universities in Europe that would start opening up programs in English, but here we are in a true American university at the core.
Yeah, everything we do is approved by our St. Louis campus. The programs we're nationally accredited in the U.S. by the Higher Learning Commission. So yeah, we follow all the accreditations we have to follow, by the books, and everything that we teach it mirrors the same thing that's taught in St. Louis.
So it's the same degree, like whether you're studying in St. Louis Missouri or in Madrid, it's the same.
Yep, exact same.
And could students start here and then maybe do a year there or even finish there?
Yeah, kind of vice versa. So if a student starts there and they want to come here, they can do that. If they start here, they can go there. There's certain programs, we have 22 programs here that they can do all 4 years. So not all programs can be completed all 4 years here. But we have, programs that they can do all 4 years. And the nice thing is they could go there for, kind of a study abroad, a semester away, and then come back here, pay the same tuition rate. Our tuition's about 27,000 euros a year, so it's lower than kind of comparable universities in the U.S. We offer scholarships for American. If anybody's American watching, you can apply federal financial aid, the FAFSA as well. So yeah, unique place and financially, available to many families.
Yes, that's an interesting way to get an American degree.
Yeah.
Because it can be
without going to the U.S.
Yeah, it can be twice as much.
I'm from the U.S., so you might want to go to the U.S. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's as you said, it can be the best of both worlds, because when we work with students and we show them, the difference between studying in Europe, where it's usually a 3-year undergraduate program, you're really focused on a specific subject of study, and then we also look at the American way, where you have more time and you can really take electives. You have the core curriculum, you explore different subjects. You have to be you have to be open and curious about all that. So, and sometimes students, it's a bit either too expensive or too far to go to the US right away as an undergraduate. So having these American universities within Europe is a great option to get that education while being maybe closer to home.
Yeah. We build it into the curriculum. So we were talking earlier about the core curriculum, and a lot of people think of, general education where you have to take math and social sciences and things like that. Well, our core curriculum is built in. It's a 4-year. If you think of a tree, you start with the roots and the base. Like the foundation of any education is, being able to write well, being able to creatively think, to be curious. So we kind of instill that in the first year. Students take a class with a professor. It's like a first-year seminar, but the point of the class is to get people grounded here, making friends, but also see what passion is for learning. So the teachers that teach the classes, they have something they're passionate about. We have an English professor who's actually passionate about music and making musical instruments and music in the world. And so he teaches students about, they go to stores and they're like, what music is playing? And he brings, 100 different instruments to campus, and he does an evolution of music throughout the time. So he's modeling what it is to be passionate about learning and things like that. And then throughout the curriculum, students have to do reflection pieces. So that's part of kind of our Jesuit education of, who am I? Who was I when I started this world history class or math class? Who are my classmates? And reflect on what I've learned. And so students say, maybe they don't understand the whole point of curiosity for many other, areas of study. We call it ways of thinking. So different, lenses that you put on, like seeing the world through a theology lens or seeing the world through history. But once they take classes, they always tell us, like, I never would have taken a painting class or a theology class or a public speaking class. But once I did, it was really interesting. And now I'm going in this direction and I'm learning. So, there's classes throughout. Earlier, we stopped by the Career Services office, and students have to take a class in their 3rd or 4th year where they reflect on, when I go to job interviews, how do I reflect on, what did I learn here and what is the value of studying at St. Louis University? So, you get credit for posting on LinkedIn, for doing interviews, for, doing those kind of professional steps. So I think the university prepares students really well to get out into the world, and that's part of the core curriculum. Yeah,
and I think that's one of the strengths that we see when we compare a French engineer with an American engineer, is that, in terms of creativity, ability for public speaking, to be convincing, to be able to... so it's amazing that you can get that experience while being in Europe. So you mentioned what are the main majors that you can have at St. Louis?
Yeah, well, there are 22 of them. So some of the most popular majors, obviously international business, psychology, which is a general psychology program. Biology is a new 4-year program that we have. Some of the engineering programs are very popular. Mechanical engineering, for example, computer science. In some of these programs, students have to do capstone projects. So end of their 4-year program, they're doing kind of a professional, either study or research, things like that. But Yeah, marketing is also popular. What I will say is the nice thing, and you'd mentioned this before, you don't have to choose one major or one program of study. So I think a lot of times, even some of our American students, when they come in, they say, I don't know what I want to study, and they think that's a bad thing. And I say, that's a great thing. You don't have to know what you want to study.
In some countries, they don't say that.
I know. Well, I know, because we're here in Spain also. And, I studied my master's in the Spanish system where you have to know exactly what you want. And I often think of it as like train tracks, like you're in a train station and, okay, I'm going to get on the international relations track. That's also another one of our most popular majors, but I'm going to do international relations. And you get going and you realize like, no, actually, maybe this isn't quite for me. And generally in a European curriculum, you'd have to go back to the train station, find the platform for, I don't know, marketing and get on that platform. But in the American system, you can do both, or the credits, let's say you decide you don't want to do that program, the credits that you took for that program, they'll count for the other programs. You just go over to the other. I'm a very visual person. So you go over to the other train line.
You keep the credits that you have and you keep building.
And it's almost like a pyramid. You just keep building. So a lot of our students will do 1 or 2 majors.
And even the one that give us
3 majors.
3 majors.
Some students will do minors. So, those are main programs. The minors are smaller programs that you can combine on. So you can be an engineer. You might be also interested in art history or English literature. You can do all that together because inevitably every program will overlap. So you said earlier, public speaking. Our students don't always want to take public speaking. They get nervous about it, but then in the end, they're really thankful. Gosh, I had to present at this big conference and I had public speaking skills. And so that was no problem. I did it, as an undergraduate student, and I did writing papers. So I got it, so.
And just to be very clear with our audience. So for example, if you do psychology because there's subjects that we know, you can study anywhere, you can move anywhere. International mobility is part of the international relations, business, these kind of things. But when we talk about engineering, psychology, nursing, does that mean that the accreditations are really US based, American based? So they would have to go pursue their careers to work in the US afterwards?
Yes. I'd say more so for nursing and psychology. Engineering students, and a lot of our students have the mindset of working in the world, not so much staying here in Spain. I'd say if you are interested in staying here in Spain, you should consider going to a Spanish university, for example, if you want to be a professional nurse here in Spain or a clinical psychologist. But studying at an American university, it opens the doors, to American universities or going there to be a nurse or pre-professional programs. Engineers, a lot of our engineers go into the private sector. So they don't often need the homologación, the recognition of the degree here in Spain. So.
All right. Do you have to speak any Spanish, or do you have to take any Spanish
We
classes?
would love you to, but you don't have to. You don't have to. I think what our students say, it definitely helps living here. So, the minute you step out the door, you could be speaking Spanish. So students love that because then they work on their Spanish when they're here. Some students don't always learn as much Spanish, but then they realize, if I want to order coffee, if I want to, get around town, it's really helpful to learn some Spanish. But here on campus, majority of the classes are in English, and because of accreditation, they're taught by native speakers or faculty who have traveled and lived in the world. Our faculty is actually as international as our student body. So
the student body, could you give a bit more breakdown of where they are from? Do we have more Spanish or more Americans or more?
Sure. Out of the 1,400 students, about half of those students are American, generally. About 10 to 15% are Spanish. And about 7 to 8% might be Moroccan, and then students come from all over different countries. Like I said, some students have about 20% of our students have 2 passports. So Italian, I'd say French, German, this part of the world, and growing amount of students from Latin America. So just because of the cultural connection, Brazil, Ecuador, Venezuela. So.
And so, quick technical question on in the US system. So as we we're saying, it's a system of credits. So you gain credits and you can build with your credits to get your degree. In Europe, the high school diplomas, whether it's the French bac or the Abitur or the Bachillerato, are sometimes considered a bit more advanced than a regular high school diploma without any advanced placements. So would that give transfer credits to students?
In the IB curriculum, yes. We're working on French Bac and other systems. A lot of that is based on our St. Louis campus. So for now,
follow the protocols.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and we're working on other curriculums, but it's coming along. So yeah, IB credits and yeah, we do for students who are studying in the American system. If anybody's done AP credits and things like that, we do provide advanced placement for that as well. So,
right.
Like the student who gave the tour, he'd come in with already a large amount of credits because I think he did the IB curriculum and he also did some AP classes.
Okay, so he accumulated the credits. We have questions about the program.
Yeah.
Do you have a major in political science?
We do. Yeah. And I think I didn't mention that when you first talked, but political science, international relations.
Is that two different majors?
It's one, so it's political science, I believe, with a concentration in international relations. We also have an international studies program. And I should mention the international studies program, as well as a relatively new major called, it's got a long name, Modern Languages and Intercultural Communication. A lot of students will add that on, tack it on as a second or a third major, because once students are here, everyone who's around you is from somewhere else. And so you inevitably start talking about, well, what's it like in Romania, or what do you eat in China, or whatever. And so people become really curious about, and those majors
the
lean,
cultural aspect.
Yeah, it's like, that's what those majors are. So yes, political science for sure.
All right. And so before we dive into the actual the application process and how does it work to actually join and come and study here, what's the typical week at St. Louis University? Some countries are very different, with sometimes very low number of hours, contact hours with teachers. Some have more. So what's the rhythm here?
We're the typical American system where classes are, students will have generally 15 hours of class. So that generally means they'll have 5 classes a week, and they'll meet 3 times a week. I think I'm getting that math right. Generally, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the classes are an hour, and Tuesday, Thursday, the classes are an hour and a half. So if you had a class on a Tuesday, Thursday, you would meet Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and a half each. So that's a 3-hour block. Generally, for anybody who's watching, when students come here, the transition from secondary, from high school to college to university, you have fewer classes, but you have to study more. So, I think that's just kind of generally the case. And it's manageable, and the semester will change your class schedule will change every semester. So there's a little more free time. There's a lot of study space. If you were to look around this room where we are in the library, there's lots of little study carrels. Students have more time to study. So there's kind of more expectations that you'll spend the time outside of the classroom. But the schedule is very manageable. So depending on, when students come in, usually we say take 4 or 5 classes in your first semester. And then as you go every semester, it just depends on, so it's very manageable.
And so, of course, for European students, it's easy. They're allowed to work here and to study at the same time. But for international students that would come from outside of the EU and have a student visa in Spain, would they be allowed to work a little bit? Yeah,
they're technically allowed to work 30 hours on a student visa. It's just a little complicated to find work just because of unemployment here in Spain. But I will say there's a lot of, if you speak a language other than Spanish, a lot of people are interested in learning English and learning French, German. It just depends on your language. So I know some of our students do that kind of on the side, not an official job, but tutoring, languages. Yeah.
So when students apply, do they have to already declare a major? Do they have to choose what they want to study? Or, could they apply undeclared, or can they apply to 2 different majors at the same time? How does it work?
They choose one. So we have a field called academic interest. So it doesn't hold them in at all to that program. And then they can change. So you don't have to know what you want to study.
More, this is what I'm most interested right now. And
I think for a lot of families, when we talk to them, we're like, you don't have to know what you want to study. And they're like, well, how do we apply then? You fill out the application. Admission to the university is general, because we know you might take 2 or 3 majors. The nursing program is the most competitive. So that is kind of holds a spot. But the admission to the university is general. So you could say, I'm interested in, the student who asked the question about political science. political science. And then you go through the process and you want to change your major. In the student portal, you just say, I want to change my major. It's not a problem. I think a lot of times it depends on your math level. When we review an application, we really look to see, do we think you'll be successful here? So we look to see how your math, so if you're going to go into marketing or international business or engineering, you need to have somewhat higher math levels, but we're not looking for specific classes per se. It's up to you. So if you haven't had calculus, for example, when you come here in your first year, you'll take a calculus class, you'll have tutoring, you'll have professors. Once we admit somebody, we want you to be successful here. So you'll have tutoring, you'll have professors that'll help you along in the first year. So so there's, you can put an academic interest, but it's not necessary. That sets people's minds at ease a lot.
Yeah. No, it's actually very, sometimes students have an idea, but they feel like, ooh, I might change my mind, or I kind of want to test it out.
That's fine.
So yeah, being in an American curriculum gives you that flexibility, a bit less pressure on that.
Exactly.
We have another question in the chat, so maybe some people missed the beginning of our chat, but if you're American, I can see, you could come study here. This is an American university, American curriculum, American degree. You can go work back home. You can continue your studies back home. How does it work for non-American students? So the question was kind of, can they continue their studies in the US? Would they be allowed to work in the US, or they have to finish their undergraduate degree in the US to have that 1 year kind of
OPT,
visa,
or the
OPT kind of thing?
to then be able to work in the US. So if they transfer here, so you can start here. Go, we've had students, if you go to the St. Louis campus, it's a direct transfer. It's very easy. It's the same institution, it's the same portal, so you just register for classes there. You do need to get the visa for the US. But if you go to another university, you take our transcript and apply to any other American university, and it's usually a pretty easy transfer process. We have students from 100 plus universities in the US come here to do a 1 semester kind of study abroad. So a lot of universities know our credits, and St. Louis University is well known in the United States. So if somebody goes there to finish, then they need to be in the States for at least a year to then be able to do the OPT, the practical training. So a lot of people want to go and kind of work, but you need to go for at least the last year. So if someone goes to our campus in the US, they would start paying our US tuition fees. And any merit scholarships that they would have gotten here, the percentage will go with them. Because obviously tuition's higher, so the scholarship will then go up when they go to the US campus.
That's nice. Very clear. Thank you. All right, so if we dive into the application process itself. Are you in the Common App? Do you have your own application portal? Can students choose? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, both of those. We have both. Common App and the portal. I always tell people, if you're going to apply to another American university, do it on the Common App. It'll be easier. We don't prefer one or the other. Our app or Common App, it's the same for us. If somebody's only applying to, let's say, European curriculum, then feel free to just do our application. It's one and the same.
And so we know American universities have a holistic review in terms of looking at an applicant, and you look at the grades, you look at making sure the student has what it takes academically to do well in your school. But beyond that, you're looking at the profile and the journey of the student. Is that true for St. Louis? So how does it work? What are the pieces that you're looking at?
I mean, primarily, yes, we're holistic. But primarily, we're looking at academics. Like, how have you done in your situation in life? Maybe you've been in the same school for 3 to 4 years. Great. And we see your grades are like this. They're high. They're good. Great. No problem. We're probably going to admit you. We want to read the essay. We want to see if you have recommendation letters. We're very standard in that American sense of, if you have recommendation letters, an essay or a personal statement, we want to get the whole picture of who you are. Academics are very important. So what your academics tell us, if we see a dip, we want to know the story that's related to that. So maybe it's that I've seen, soccer players or who've hurt their ankle, or dancers who hurt their knee, or family situations. The story helps us. That's why the essay or personal statement or even additional essay is really important. It kind of parallels the grades. So if your grades kind of went like this and then they came back up a little bit, tell us, did you change schools? Sometimes we'll see people who might have started in, let's say, the French curriculum, and then their parents moved to the UK. And then they're starting in here was when they started at the UK, like because it was in English and you haven't studied in English. And then you kind of you got some tutoring, you got back on track. We like to see kind of the success stories. I figured out how to help myself get back up. So we look at academics for sure. Primarily, we want to admit students who we think will be successful. So we're not admitting maybe more like European universities of like, just get everybody in and let's see if they succeed.
We survive.
Yeah, it's not sink or swim. It's come in, and if you're in here, there's tutors, there's academic advisors, there's counseling services, disability. If you need extra time for tests or quiet spaces, like we want you to succeed if we've admitted you.
I mean, that's very important for our families and students to understand. In Europe, sometimes universities want to be open in terms of, if you graduate from high school, you are welcome to join. But then you see, success rate to pass in year 2. Like in France, it can be 50% or more that don't make it into year 2. And so when here, you're going to look at the student a bit more closely. Maybe your admission team is a bit bigger. You can spend that time into each application.
Takes a long time.
Yeah. I know it's a full-time job. But then when you admit a student, the goal is for that student to graduate, right? Yeah. And if the students, show up and try and wants to do better and do well, as you said, there's lots of support. That should go well.
The stories of graduation are the stories of students struggling kind of in the first year, and they come back to us in admissions because they've known us. And it's heartwarming when they walk across the stage at graduation, because that student struggled in the first year and they really just needed like a hug or a walk around the block to like, let's figure out what resources do you have to figure out this academic problem. I had a student who thought she was failing in her first year, and we went and I said, have you talked to the professor? Oh, I can talk to the professor. And you're like, but you can talk to the professor. That's what they have open office hours, go talk to her. And we went together and he's like, you're not failing. You're doing great. Look at this paper you just wrote. You got a, A-. And she's like, I thought I was, they just, sometimes students don't know that you have all of these resources here to help you succeed. So, I personally love when I get to see a student that I've helped along the way, at graduation. And it's 4 years of lots of fun and struggle and growing. And this is a great campus to do that on. So.
All right. Yeah. And if we go back on more technical aspects of the application, are you looking at a specific English level? And if so, what kind of tests do you accept? What kind of level are you expecting? Yeah.
So we have a whole chart on our webpage, and we do look for certain levels of English. So we do have 2 ways of entering the university. One is what you would consider kind of direct entry. And I should have studied my minimum test scores before the podcast, but you can find it all on the webpage. I think it's an 80 on the TOEFL, but there's a certain level because you're going right in with native speakers. Yep. We also have another program that we call the 1 semester bridge program. So it's 1 semester. You're already starting classes in your academic studies, but you're taking 2 classes that help you with writing and a little support, because you'll enter with a little bit lower level of English. So TOEFL, IELTS, SAT. Unfortunately, we don't accept the Duolingo. We're really small. Our English program is very small. So we've seen scores have come in at all different levels, and or students with the same score actually come in with different levels. So for right now, we're looking for,
So IELTS,
TOEFL,
Cambridge?
Yeah, Cambridge, SAT, Pearson. I mean, we have a whole list of them.
Do you sometimes accept some international or bilingual curriculum, like the International French Bac or the dual diploma in France?
If someone studied for more than 4 years in English,
it has to be fully.
Yeah. So because we've seen students, sometimes they've done 2 or 3 years in the US, but actually they still need that support. So this is university level academic English and writing.
Taking a test is the best way.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah.
All right. And so you mentioned SAT. I guess you could use the English section of the SATs to prove the level of English.
We're test optional. So,
but you're test optional. Yeah. So students, if they have it, they can send it.
Yeah. So if someone's from the American system, they don't need the SAT or ACT. If they're coming from the French system, of course, we look at the BAC or the Abitur you'd mentioned before, or A levels. Like, we need to see that whatever education system you're in, you could enter university. So.
Yeah, I see that. That's good to know that, and to see that in all these international universities that have a large international student body, they have experts that understand all these curriculums.
We try.
It's hard to keep up with. but it's very good to see that you can actually look at the student in their own context. Right.
Right. Yeah, which we don't want to do, just put everything onto an American scale. We are an American university, but what we don't want to do is, French back takers out there, don't worry. We understand that you wouldn't just put a 15 as a low score. Like, we know how difficult it is.
You don't expect 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. So we look at you and your own context. We don't put everything into an American scale.
All right. So. Do you do interviews?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
For everyone?
Not for everyone. We encourage students to reach out. Let's say if you're high performing, high achieving, and you want to go for our full tuition scholarship.
You have full tuition scholarship.
Yep. We award 2 annually in the fall. And we encourage interviews for that. So, and then maybe if somebody had some of these dips, we encourage an interview so we can get to know you that way.
All right. So. And so how would you, what type of student would be a good fit? Because we always talk about fit, especially in the US system, right? Each student has to find the uni where they're going to flourish. What would you say, what type of student is a good fit for St. Louis University in Madrid? Yeah,
I think maybe 2 things come to mind. Somebody who is curious about the world around them. Somebody who, I don't want to say, marches to the beat of a different drummer. Somebody who's looking for something not so typical as their local university. And then somebody who's maybe comfortable with students from other places, and they're interested in getting to know these other people. So maybe it's curiosity for studying or for being in Spain, but then also curiosity for people who are different from them. So yeah.
Being open-minded.
Yeah, being open-minded, curious, and people grow so much here just because their friends groups become people they would have never been in touch with if they stayed in their home country before.
All right. So. Are you looking specifically at some, in the French bac we have these specialty subjects, or the higher levels? Is that something that plays a role, or the fact that a student is a full IB student or a French bac student is sufficient, and then the subjects that they pick is not as important?
Yeah, I think for us, the subject students pick is not as important, because once they come here, they could take many different majors. Yeah, so we don't look specifically, have you taken, higher level math or, et cetera. So yeah, our admission is general to the university, because we know you may go in many different directions along the way.
All right. So. Two things we haven't touched on. Housing. How does it work?
Yeah. So there's no housing requirement. Students can live wherever they want. Okay. Here on campus, we have soon to be 5 buildings. We don't have housing for students here specifically. We're in the center of Madrid, but kind of in a quiet area near the university city. But there's lots of housing around here. There's residence halls
all around.
Yeah. Even some students will stay in residence halls. 8 to 10 minute walk. There are quite a few that our students live in. We also have host families. In the first year, sometimes students will live with a host family, not as many.
Good to learn Spanish.
Yeah, exactly. It forces you. I did that when I came, and I'm so grateful. I'm still in touch with my host family.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's the best way to work on your Spanish, but sometimes you just want to make friends and have kind of the college experience. The dorms the residence halls around here are great. What students usually do is they'll do that for the first year. They'll make friends and then get a shared apartment. So it's more affordable, sharing rent with friends in an apartment. And then, yeah, and it's cool. It's cool to live in Madrid. I'm like,
is it difficult to find a place to stay? Do you help with that?
Not yet. I'd say it's not difficult yet. We have a housing coordinator. We have a housing department. She helps with pointing students in the right direction. Our website has, the residence halls, the host families, even the external companies that will help kind of set you up with roommates if you want to just go off completely on your own. So yeah, there's help there for you if you need it.
All right.
Madrid's a great place to live. I mean, it's such a fun city. I'm waiting for let's talk about the fun, the fun aspects in Madrid, but it's a great city to be a student.
Exactly.
It's the #1 country for European Erasmus students.
Okay.
Usually the #2 or 3 country for American study abroad students. Okay. Get a lot of Latin American students coming. I think Madrid specifically is a great place to be a student because it's super fun. There's lots to do. You can be out. It's safe. We always talk to families about that. Coming from the U.S. and sometimes being in certain cities in the US, like people don't go out when it's dark. And here, I mean, there are more people out when it's dark than during the day.
Or you eat only when it's dark.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Spain is a lot about being out and about and enjoying, the terraces, having coffee and drinks with friends or snacks, and students love it. So it's an affordable capital city in Europe.
Compared to other places.
Like I said, you can kind of be out and about at any time of day. I've lived here for a long time and I've always felt safe. So even as a student, when I was here, walking by yourself at 2 a.m, which sounds crazy in some countries, it's there's lots of people out. So, and then Madrid as a city for being a student and then looking for your professional life. When we had the tour earlier, we were talking to Kyle about internships and things. Madrid as a hub for Latin America and Iberia as a whole, there's a lot of multinational companies here. Our students get internships. So, the working world for students this is like the doorway to.
So like everyone wants to be in Madrid these days.
Yeah, everybody wants. You've got to come to Madrid.
So what about clubs, activities?
You name it.
Yeah,
we have it. Name it.
As an American university,
we're an American university through and through. So we have all the support and all the like on-campus activities. I was going to just look around the room. We have a door over there, and generally during the semester, it's plastered from like floor to ceiling with clubs. There's
events,
sports clubs. Our head of sports, Cesar, is a former professional basketball player with Los Estudiantes. He's connected with every like federation here. He organizes a Sierra club, running club, pickup games. So there's that. So as far as an American university, we have a men's soccer team that plays around the city of Madrid. One thing that we're really strong in is performing arts. So we're not as much an American kind of sports campus, even though we do have those sports. We do have a theater production every semester. We have a choir. We have music practice rooms, lots of music opportunities. The student who asked about political science before, we have a human rights club. They do lots of, fundraising. One of our biggest clubs is called Boca Talk. So sandwich in Spanish is bocadillo.
Okay.
And talk, obviously, is talk.
Just talking around a sandwich.
Talking around a sandwich.
Where are our sandwiches?
Yeah, I know. Well, we have our mugs. But our students, this is a club that students started where they make sandwiches, they take them to homeless people, and they sit and talk. And it's community. So it's not just like giving sandwiches and running away. It's sitting and talking. So for our students, sometimes it's language learning, but it's also understanding where some of the people experiencing homelessness are coming from. And they hear from them, we actually don't need coats. We need blankets, or we need this. So then sometimes we've done fundraising. Part of the Jesuit mission is really giving back to others and kind of thinking, who am I in the world and how can I give back to others? So, there's clubs like that. And then there's, running club and there's a gardening club where they have a plot of land, and every spring we have a garden. I mean, I could keep going. There's a lot of fun clubs and students really make this their home. And while we don't have housing on campus, people are here all the time. So it's a really fun, it's kind of like a beehive. It's fun, campus full of activity. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we covered.
Hopefully we convinced you all that you should be coming here.
I mean, this is
studying with us.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm convinced. Anything else that we haven't covered, or anything you would like to share with
I think we've covered a lot of it. Maybe the last thing, and I did say already, Madrid is it's a fun city. It's a safe city. It's a great springboard to professional life. Now that you think of the world, they say, the world is your oyster, but the world is flat also. So kind of whatever job you might get in the future, you're going to be surrounded probably by people who are not like you. So someone who doesn't speak your native language, or someone who comes from a different part of the world. And students here are practicing that kind of intermingling, whether it's in class or in our cafeteria or in some of the clubs or the student government. You're kind of practicing what it's like to be who you are. You're figuring out who you are, whether that's personally, your gender, your sexual identity, your, what your thoughts and feelings are. But then you're also learning things in in the classes, and you're putting them all together with other students, and doing group projects are always a great way to practice that. But I think even just this campus is so special because it is small, it is caring, and you really do get to figure out who you are in the world with people who are not like you. So I think that's a huge skill that you can't really put on a curriculum or say this is part of a program that you're going to you're going to, figure out what it is to interact with people from all over, and then be comfortable with, okay, let's say you have a new, fast forward 10 years from now. Okay, I'm in a team and there's a new Chinese, let's say, coworker who doesn't speak English very well. You're going to have the empathy to say, like, well, I studied in Spain and I know what it's like to not be able to speak the language of, the country or whatever. So I think our students often say they're much more empathetic in situations where if they hadn't studied here, they would just say, oh, that's the foreigner, So being more empathetic and seeing the world with a different lens, many different lenses, actually.
Where do your students go afterwards?
Everywhere. Sometimes they go home to their home countries. Sometimes they follow their friends. So if their friends I knew a student who went to Hong Kong, and then he kind of recruited his friends to go and work there. But, the opportunities are there. It's, our students do Fulbrights. They do, Peace Corps and things, and work in many different parts of the world. So,
study between the ones that maybe continue, because in Europe we have that culture of maybe more automatically thinking, I need to go for a master's degree, when in the US you tend to kind of do your bachelor degree and work.
I think it's
what's the mix here?
I think it's maybe 60-40, maybe 60% go on to work and 40%. Our career services person later, if you're watching this, if I've misquoted, correct me. But some students will go on to continue studying. One, because they want to stay here in Spain or stay here in Europe. And other students will get jobs right away. I love watching it this time of year, especially on LinkedIn, to see all the graduates and like, I'm working here now. I'm like, that's so amazing. I love it.
Being a
student to like finding jobs and working, and it's really cool. Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Heidi. I don't think we have any more questions. We've answered them all.
Thank you.
So it was a lovely chat.
Thanks.
It's always great to get to understand each institution better. And I think this is a really special place, really, really friendly, really, really nice, where students can only be happy.
Yeah.
So thank you so much
thank you.
Thanks
this. For those who are watching too.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you on another episode of the Anywhere Uni Live podcast. Bye-bye.